A very good morning to all of you. In the previous lecture, we talked about Baba Chatterjee's views regarding the inner domain, that is, spiritual domain of what we call nationalism. And he talks about different aspects such as language and literature, education, uh, then family as an institute. So after talking about all these things, he comes to the point that with the growing strength of nationalist politics, the spiritual domain, became more extensive and internally differentiated. So we have some ideas related to self, and the cultural difference was proclaimed by the nationalist leaders, and the dominant elements of its self-definition were drawn from the ideology of the modern liberal democratic state. That's what we understand during the social reformation age and even during the period of nationalism as well. The ideas were borrowed from the modern liberal democratic state. And as per this ideology, which is the liberal ideology, the public of the nation was distinguished from the domain of the private. So we understood that in the previous lecture. So we started thinking in terms of the public and private, taking inspiration from this ideology, liberal ideology. And the state, means the government, was required to protect the inalienability of the private self in relation to other selves. Means there can be private selves in terms of race, in terms of language, in terms of religion. Apart from that, there is private self itself. For example, as an individual, I have my private self, and as a part of a community, as a part of a linguistic group, as a part of a religious group, class, etc., we have our private selves. So the government was supposed to protect this thing, what we call line, the legitimacy of the state in carrying out this function was to be guaranteed by its indifference to concrete differences. The state, means the government, should not, discriminate its subject, its citizens, its civilians in terms of their race, language, religion, class, caste, etc. So it is the responsibility of the state. And we understood it from this modern liberal ideology. Now, what is the trouble in doing so? That we need to understand. So he focuses on that. The trouble was that the moral intellectual leadership of the nationalist elite. Okay, nationalist elites mean the educated people who started this movement. We understood, especially in Bengal, it was the educated class, bilingual Bengalis, those who knew Bengali and English. They read English extensively, and then they brought their ideas to implement in their culture, in their language. So these nationalist elite, if you take the names of all nationalist leaders, you'll realize that they were highly educated people, right from Tilak in Maharashtra, or he was the national level leader. And when we talk about Bipin Chandra Pal and other such leaders, so they operated in a field constituted by a very different set of distinctions. Okay, their leadership, moral, intellectual, their ideas about morality, their ideas about intellectual intelligence, so they had a different set of distinctions. between the spiritual and the material, the inner and the outer. The spiritual is the inner domain, and the material is the outer domain. Okay, means in the inner domain we understood they talked about language, literature, education, okay, family as a system. So all these aspects, they they thought that the colonial power should not intervene in the inner domain. And then they talked about the material, the inner and the outer, the essential and the inessential. What is essential and what is not essential. So in terms of these distinctions, they understood everything. And this particular ideology fought or contested, it was a kind of contested field over which nationalism had proclaimed its sovereignty. This is the field ideology. They, based on that, they started proclaiming the sovereignty. Okay, Sarvabhaumyatva. That's what we understand by sovereignty every time. And it had imagined its true community was neither coextensive with or nor coincidental to the field constituted by the public-private distinction. You need to understand that. Yes, this is the European ideology. In Europe, they had this distinction between public and private. And this particular distinction cannot be applied to this the spiritual and the material. So this is the point wherein they claimed the difference. They proclaimed its sovereignty. Now, what do you understand by it? Means, for example, when you are traveling by the public transport in the US or in the Europe, that is your public life. Or when you are on the media, means giving a speech in media, that is your public speech. And private means whatever life you live as an individual. This is the clear-cut distinction in these countries, but in our case, this distinction is not that simple. And he explains it with the help of the example of Bipin Chandra Pal's narrative experience. We shall understand that. When we read it out, we will be able to understand that. So these nationalist elites, no, they thought that the European notion of the public and private distinction is not applicable to these particular distinctions between the spiritual and the material, the inner and the outer. They are altogether different things. They cannot be coextensive or coincidental. So, in the form of it, means in the public field, the hegemonic project of nationalism could hardly make, not for public, spiritual, I mean to say. In the spiritual domain, the hegemonic project of nationalism could hardly make the distinction of language, religion, caste, or class a matter indifference to itself. In spiritual domain, we should understand language was important, religion was important, caste was important, the class. Okay, that was something that they took care of. Okay, and the project was that of cultural normalization. Means for these people, as Anderson suggests, cultural normalization was to be brought. Okay, like bourgeois hegemonic projects everywhere. In European context, you have got bourgeois hegemonic projects. For example, we talk about the term hegemony with reference to Antonio Gramsci. So you are familiar with this hegemony. And we understand that Marxist criticism is based on its criticism on the bourgeois hegemony. And in the inner domain, this is not applicable as per the nationalist elites of Indian nationalism, we can say. As it is applicable to Europe, Russia, the US, the bourgeois hegemony project is applicable everywhere, but in the case of the spiritual domain, this is not applicable. But with all important difference that it had to choose is its site of autonomy. Means the spiritual domain has its own autonomy. We need to understand this. He comes up with a very interesting example. We shall understand this autonomy of the spiritual domain from a position of subordination to a colonial regime. So they wanted to keep it away, maintain the autonomy of the spiritual domain. They didn't want the colonial power, a regime, or state, to take control of this. Okay, so they wanted to keep it away from the colonial regime because the colonial regime had its impact in every field. So what happened exactly then? The result is that autonomous forms of imagination of the community, he says, whatever forms of uh, imagined community that Anderson talks about or other European, American political thinkers, scholars think, which is the autonomous forms of imagined community, were and continue to be overwhelmed and sapped by the history of the post-colonial state. Here he says that is not applicable to these post-colonial states like India and other Asian or African nations. These are now the post-colonial states, and this idea of imagined community is not applicable, okay, to these colonial or post-colonial states. Here lies the root of a post-colonial misery. That's what he says. Here is the root of a post-colonial misery. Means it is not in a inability to think out new forms of the modern community, but in a surrender to the old forms of the modern state. Where is the misery of the post-colonial state? This he describes as a post-colonial misery. And what is this misery? This misery is not in a inability to think out new forms. We are unable to think about new forms of modern community. That is not the matter of misery for us, but the misery is in our surrender, in our submission. Surrender means Saranagati to the old forms of the modern state. We have surrendered to the old forms, not to the new forms of the modern state. Then what he says, if the nation is an imagined community, and if nations must also take the form of states, then our theoretical language must allow us to talk about community and state at the same time. If it is an imagined community, according to Anderson, and if nations must also take the form of states, in the nation we need to have governments as well. Then, while talking about the theory of such nations, we need to talk about community and state at the same time. We can't simply talk about imagined community. Anderson talks about imagined community. But what about the state? Who is going to talk about that? So our theory should include both these aspects. And this is the limitation of the present theory. That's what he says. Partha Chatterjee says, I do not think our present theoretical language allows us to do this. Means we talk only about what we said, the imagined community. But we rarely talk about the forms of states in the nation. Means governments run by different systems, different political parties. And he's underlined this fact that is the limitation of this particular theoretical assumption that a nation is a an imagined community. Then he tries to explain this point with the help of Bipin Chandra Pal. He was the fiery leader of the Swadeshi movement. In the next part of my lecture, I shall be talking about this particular experience that is being described by Bipin Chandra Pal.